This is a simplified version of the lightning bug, tied as a Euro-style nymph. Today, you're going to learn to tie it. Using basic tools and relatively few tying materials, we will tie a fantastic prospecting pattern that is effective on just about any trout river. Start by loading the vise with a Hannock 400 jig hook. I paired this one with a 3.2 millimeter tungsten bead. I use this hook because it has a long shank to form the narrow body of the fly. The original pattern calls for white thread, but today I'm using UTC 70 in cream. Start in behind the bead and wrap back to the bend, keeping your thread flat. Now select a few pheasant tail fibers. Here, I'm selecting them from the top section of a tail. Do your best to align the tips, but don't drive yourself crazy over it. You can also use Coq de Leon fibers if you want the tail to be a little more durable. The original formula calls for a pheasant tail, but it doesn't really matter. Tie in a piece of small copper wire for the ribbing of this fly. Tie it in at the bend of the hook, and then wrap forward to the bead to create a smooth base for the thin body that will add to the profile of this pattern. Snip off the excess pheasant tail and tie in a piece of Semperfli hollow tinsel in gold. Here's where you can vary the colors of this fly. You can use a variety of flashy materials to wrap the body. At the end of this video, I'll show you some different variations of this same pattern. Keeping your thread flat, take wraps all the way back up to the bead. You can use your rotary feature or simply make wraps with the tinsel to form the body of the fly. Tie it in behind the bead after securing with a few thread wraps. Snip off the extra tinsel. Now counterwrap the small copper wire, taking it all the way up the shank to the back of the bead. Lock in the wire with a few thread wraps and helicopter the excess. I like to add a layer of UV resin to the body of this pattern. The UV layer adds some extra shine and durability to the fly, but believe me, this is just an optional step. If you don't have UV resin or a UV light, do not let this step keep you from learning how to tie this fly. I promise you, the trout won't know any different. Next, tie in a piece of opal tinsel to form the eventual wing case. Again, you can vary the color. The more important part is the width of the tinsel. I like to use a wide tinsel to make sure it covers the thorax to completely form the wing case. The thorax is going to be created by first selecting 2 peacock curls. After pulling them free from the stem, make sure to snip them evenly at the tie-in point. Placing them directly behind the bead, tie them in and secure them with a few thread wraps. Peacock curl can be delicate, so be careful with the next step. Carefully wrap both hurls back up to the bead to form the thorax. This is why I like to use the longer shank Hannock 400 hook. You can create a significant thorax and still have plenty of room for that thin exposed body. I really like the profile of this fly, and so do the trout. After securing the peacock curl behind the bead, bring the opal tinsel forward to form the wing case. Secure it with a few thread wraps. To finish off the fly, I like to add some UV resin to my thread and build it into my whip finish. If you don't have UV resin, super glue or head cement works fine too. If you don't have either of those things, a good whip finish will suffice. The lightning bug is an effective and versatile attractor pattern. You have just tied a simplified version. The original pattern calls for legs using pheasant tail fibers. But if you've watched any of my other tying videos, you know that I like to simplify patterns when I can. If you want to add legs using pheasant tail fibers, go for it. I generally don't take that extra step. I like my nymphs to have less resistance on their descent, and I find that pheasant tail fibers are not very durable. Sometimes I will add a CDC collar if I want to add the appearance of legs. As you can see, the lightning bug can be tied with all kinds of materials to create a variety of looks. I encourage you to experiment with this pattern. Find out what works best on your rivers. I really want to thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, I hope you will give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also, feel free to ask any questions in the comments. I always respond to my viewers. Now, it's time to step away from your vise and get out on the water.